Good morning. My name is Gary Lee Ogden, and I am the superintendent of Groveport Madison Local Schools. I'm so excited to be here and read to you for Black History Month. I want to talk to you a little bit about what superintendent of schools means. It's basically like the president of a company. So what I do is I am president of, or the big principal of, all of the schools in Groveport. So I don't get to see all of you all the time, but I am in the schools and I do visit your schools, and I get to see your principals and your teachers and some of you. And I'm just so excited that I get to read to you today. I really wish I could be at the schools reading to you, but we know that we have to social distance and be safe right now. So I am going to read to you a book that I used to love to read when I was a third grade teacher to my third graders. And this book is called Chicken Sunday. And Chicken Sunday is by Patricia Polacco, and it's a really great book, so I'm really excited. And Black History Month is really important time for us, that we honor African Americans and the sacrifices and the suffrage of their ancestors and current day. So one of the things that we want to do is promote a lot of our literature about Black culture, and this is a really great book, so I hope you enjoy it. If I could turn my pages, here we go. Stuart and Winston were my neighbors. They were my brothers by a solemn ceremony we had performed in their backyard one summer. They weren't the same religion as I was. They were Baptists. Their grandma, Eula Mae Walker, was my grandma now. My babushka had died 2 summers before. Babushka is another name for grandma. Sometimes my mother let me go to church on Sunday with them. How we loved to hear Miss Eula sing. She had a voice like a slow thunder and sweet rain. We'd walk to church and back. She'd take my hand as we crossed College Avenue. Even though we've been churching up like decent folks ought to, she'd say, I don't want you to step in front of one of those too fast cars. You'll be as flat as a hen's tongue. She'd squeeze my hand. And when we passed Mr. Kadinsky's hat shop, Miss Eula would always stop and look in the window at the wonderful hats. Then she'd sigh and she'd walk on. I wonder why she'd sigh. I'm going to predict that that sigh means that she just probably really wishes that she would maybe have one of those, because she's got a hat on here. All right, let's see what's going on. We'd call those Sundays Chicken Sundays because Miss Eula almost always fried chicken for dinner. There'd be collard greens with bacon, a big pot of Hoppin' John, corn on the cob, and fried spoon bread. One Sunday at the table, we watched her paper fan flutter back and forth, pulling moist chicken fried air along with it. She took a deep breath. Her skin glowed as she smiled. Then she told us something we already knew. The Easter bonnet in Mr. Kadinsky's window is the most beautiful I'd ever seen, she said. The 3 of us exchanged looks. We wanted to get her that hat more than anything in the world. So you can see as she's sitting there and her eyes are kind of drifting off, she's probably thinking about that hat. And back the page before, when we talked about how she would sigh and maybe why, that was our why. So I'm curious what these kids are going to do when they exchange looks at each other. Are they going to work together to maybe try to get that hat for Miss Eula? Stuart reached into the hole in the trunk of our wish tree in the backyard. He pulled out a rusty Band-Aid tin. The 3 of us held our breath as we counted the money inside that we had been saving for weeks. If we're ever going to get that hat for Miss Eula in time for Easter, we are going to need a lot more money than this, I announced. Maybe we should ask Mr. Kadinsky if we could sweep up the shop or something to earn the rest of the money, Stuart said. I don't know, Winnie said fearfully. He's such a strange old man. He never smiles at anyone. He always looked so mean. We all agreed it was worth a try anyway. So if he never smiles at anyone, I wonder if he is just a grouchy old man. But sometimes we look at people and we think something different than what's really going on. So let's find out. The next day we took a shortcut down the alley and back of the hat shop. Bigger boys were there. They were yelling. Eggs flew past us and pelted Mr. Kadinsky's back door. Just as the boys ran away, the door flew open. Mr. Kadinsky glared straight at us. "You there," he yelled. "Why do you kids do things like this?" "It wasn't us," Stuart tried to say, but Mr. Kadinsky would not listen to us. "All I want to do is live my life in peace. I am calling your grandmother," he shouted, and he wagged his finger in Stuart's face. So sometimes things like this happen, which is unfortunate, right? So the kids who did it already are gone, and these poor guys are like, "We didn't do it," but let's see what happens next. Miss Eula was waiting in her living room for us. "Miss Eula, we didn't throw eggs," I sobbed. "Some big boys did," Stuart sputtered. "What were you doing in the back of his shop in the first place?" she asked. We knew that we couldn't tell her the truth, so we just stood there and cried. Well, why do you think they couldn't tell her the truth? My guess is if they told her the truth, it would ruin their hopeful surprise of getting her that favorite Easter bonnet she's wanting. She looked at us for a long while. "Baby dears, I want to believe you. Heaven knows that I brought you children up to always tell the truth. If you say you didn't do it, then I believe you. It is too bad, though," she went on to say. "That poor man has suffered so much in his life. He deserves more than eggs thrown at him. He thinks you threw the eggs. You'll have to show him that you are good people. You'll have to change his mind somehow." And a lot of times we do that. We, just like the kids were thinking Mr. Kadinsky's a grouchy old man, well, the poor man, eggs get thrown at his store, so that probably makes him grouchy. And then he's making a judgment that these kids are the bad kids and they didn't do anything. So I think this is a great example of how we should talk and work things out and not always make assumptions that someone's bad, because that's not always the case. In my kitchen the next day, we thought and thought, "How can we win him over when he thinks we threw those eggs?" Stuart asked. "He doesn't even like us," Winston chirped. "Eggs?" I said quietly. "Eggs?" Stuart asked. "Eggs!" I screamed. I went to the kitchen drawer and I took out a lump of beeswax, a candle, a small funnel with a wooden handle, and some packets of yellow, red, and black dye. Now that's interesting. I wonder what they're going to do with those. Mom helped me show the boys how to decorate eggs the way my bubby had taught us. The way they do it in the old country. We made designs on eggshells and hot wax, then dyed them, and finally melted the wax patterns off. We put the eggs in a basket, and even though we were afraid, we marched to Mr. Kadinsky's shop and put them on the counter. He raised his eyebrows and glowered at us. Then his eyes dropped to the basket. "Spasiba," he said softly. That means thank you in Russian. Pizanki eggs. That's a hard word to say. He said as he looked closely, "I haven't seen these since I left my homeland." "We didn't throw those eggs at your door, Mr. Kadinsky," we told him. He looked at us for a minute. "Well then, you have great courage to be here." "Chutzpah, you have chutzpah." Then his eyes glistened and his mouth curled in a warm smile. "Come have some tea with me," he said. So it's really interesting how those bad kids threw eggs, and then these kids did something that he appreciated about his culture being Russian. They made him piansky eggs. We spent the whole afternoon talking together, having poppy seed cake and strong tea. He told us about his life and we told him about ours. We finally got the courage to ask him to do some odd jobs so we could earn some extra money. He apologized and said there was no work. We didn't tell him what we wanted the money for. It didn't seem the right thing to do. Our hearts sank. I'll tell you this, he said thoughtfully. These eggs are as beautiful as my hats. And it's almost Easter, he went on to say. I'm sure that people would love these eggs. Set up a table and sell them right here in my shop. That's a good idea. For the next few days, we worked very hard. We made almost a dozen Pysanky eggs. When people came in, they picked them up and said they were beautiful and splendid and intricate and glorious. We sold them all in one single day. That afternoon, when all the eggs were gone, we counted our money. We had more than enough for the hat. Just as we were about to tell Mr. Kadinsky that we wanted to buy the hat, he came out of the back room holding a beautiful hat box, gift wrapped. Keep your money, children, he said softly. I've seen Miss Eula admire this hat. This is for her, isn't it? Tell her that I know you all are very good children, such good children. When Easter Sunday arrived, we thought our hearts would burst when we watched Miss Eula open the hat box. She held us close as big tears ran down her cheeks. Our hearts sang along with the choir that Sunday. She looked so beautiful in that hat. When it was time for her solo, we knew that she was singing just for us. Her voice was like slow thunder and sweet rain. That slow thunder is because it's deep, but sweet rain is because it's so soft and beautiful at the same time. She's really happy. Later that day, as Miss Eula sat at the head of the table, she said, "Oh, baby dears, I can die happy now. And after I'm dead on Chicken Sundays, I want you to boil up some chicken bones, gravy and all, and pour it over my grave so late at night when I'm hungry, I can reach out and have me some." Then she rolled her head back and laughed from a deep, holy place inside. So, this book is so neat because, and it's not over yet, but it's a blending of two cultures. We're talking about Black History Month, right? And Black authors and Black characters in our books. And so Miss Eula and her grandsons are Baptists. And then you've got this child who is Russian, right? And they made the Ukrainian eggs. And we have two cultures blending together. So that's super cool. Winston, Stuart, and I are grown up now. Our old neighborhood was changed some, yet it's familiar too. The freeway rumbles over the spot where Mr. Kadinsky's shop once stood. I think of him often in his glorious hats. We lost Miss Eula some time back, but every year we take some chicken soup up to the Mountain View Cemetery and we do just what she asked. Sometimes, when we're especially quiet inside, we can hear singing, a voice that sounds like slow thunder and sweet rain. Wow. Super cool. And it's a true story. If you look at this back piece, the story really is about Patricia, who wrote the book, and Stuart and Winston, who are still her friends. And I think one of the most important things about this month is, with Black History Month, is not just honoring Black ancestors and the history, but honoring all of our Black American friends this month. And one thing that I love about being a cruiser, and I love about Groveport Madison Schools is that we are a blended family, and we have all different cultures in our district and appreciate each other. And I appreciate all of you. And here's to a wonderful Black History Month. I hope we learn from each other and respect each other and learn more and are proud about Black culture and all of the sacrifices made for individuals, for each other, and for the greater community. So have a wonderful week.